Whiskey, episode 12. Uh, Calling from a very windy and damp Dublin city. We're live, episode 12, because special guest with us is Robert Caldwell. But just before we start, some news. It's been a fairly quiet week, a few announcements. Firstly, next week on the 26th of August, Sleeve League are giving you the opportunity to support their crowdfunding project and be part of a historic new distillery that's opening in Donegal. So that's on the 26th. So that's when that starts. If you're interested, you can sign up there. Disaronno International have released the Busker Irish whiskey into the US market. It's a blend of bourbon, a blend finished in bourbon, marsala, and sherry casks, initially matured in ex-bourbon casks. And that's going on sale in the US for about $30. And they are going to be releasing 3 others whiskies at the same time. Sarah Kennedy has joined as brand ambassador for McConnell's Irish Whiskey. Wish her good luck in her new role there with the Belfast Distillery Company of Ireland. Belfast Distillery Company are looking to open a distillery in the Crumlin Road Jail in Belfast, and I think planning is underway for that. So hopefully that will come to fruition very soon. On another note then, Wayward Spirits have released the Liberator Batch 2. This is a ex-bourbon cask matured whiskey with whiskey sourced from Cooley and Great Northern, whiskey ranging from 4 to 14-year-old, retailing at €65, I believe it is. And this is batch 2, so it's a little bit longer maturation in tawny port casks. So that's available now. It's limited to 1,000, and that's going on sale on Friday, I believe. Irish Malts, Celtic Whisky Shop, and other suppliers. And then planning permission in Galway has gone in for a new distillery in Angostura in Galway, backed by Gareth and his wife Michelle McAllister. So hopefully that planning permission comes through, and we'll hear good news September, October about that distillery. And that's about it for news. Let's bring in our guests here. Rob, I can catch him. Robert.
Hi.
Having a good sniff there before we start. How are you?
Yeah, why not?
Absolutely. It's Wednesday. It's cold outside. You know, it's almost a hot whiskey time.
Yeah, it is a bit of a miserable one, but I think this is deserved right now. The rain is going sideways right now.
Yeah. I know there are warnings out there for people in Cork, especially. But how have you been keeping?
Oh, yeah, good. You know how it is. Ever adapting. It's a very kind of transitory kind of place right now, and very reactionary. Kind of just roll with the punches, wait for the government guidelines, and then adapt accordingly. Try our best to keep it rolling.
Are you based a lot now in the distillery? The distillery is open for tours, isn't it, at the moment?
Distillery's open again. I'm in there a couple of times a week. I'm based in Bray in Wicklow, so okay. I kind of get up there. Obviously, the start of lockdown didn't make the trip. A lot of virtual tastings to be done and work from home. So yeah, luckily didn't have to make the trip on a daily basis, but still getting up there, still kind of visiting in, seeing how they're getting on. We now have to wear masks when visiting the cafe and taking tours, and just trying to, like you said, just adapt accordingly and do our best in the current state of lockdowns.
Still difficult times, and of course the pubs haven't reopened yet. And just, I should have introduced you properly, Rob. You're a brand ambassador for Teeling Whiskey Company. And a lot of people will actually know you more from the bar trade initially anyway. How did you end up getting into the hospitality industry for a start? So you weren't born in Dublin?
Yeah. No. No, I was born in Australia. In a place I grew up in a place called Byron Bay, so moved there when I was 1 or 2. So yeah, for all intents and purposes, grew up in Byron Bay, a bit of a tourist destination in Australia. It's the most easterly point, so big for New Year's Eve. One of the first places in Australia that gets the sunrise. And to give you a sense of, you know, the trend, like the tourism, I guess, that comes through that town. There's about 10,000 locals and about 30,000 backpackers that change on a weekly basis. So yeah, wow. A lot of people coming and going. So you kind of grew up with a lot of friends that, you know, whether Irish and Swedish and English and Canadian, and you kind of get a sense of what's going on outside your bubble. So kind of went to high school there, played a bit of rugby, and didn't know what I wanted to do, like many people. And someone, you know, what part of the rugby club are like, just stand on that door over there and don't tell anyone to come in. Tell them to go around the front. Because obviously I was, you know, an 18-year-old kid. I wasn't on the front door. I was on the exit-only side door. So I was just stand there and tell people to go around the front, go around the front, go around the front. Supremely boring job. But very quickly kind of met some bartenders, went, can I jump behind the bar and pull a pint and make a drink? And yeah, here I am 20 years later, still in the hospitality industry, you know, still big part of my life. Kind of, yeah, fell into it.
What attracted you to it in the first place? I mean,
is it not very romantic to say convenience?
Reality bites.
Yeah. At the start, it was certainly convenience. Yeah. But I think, yeah, just meeting people on a daily basis. You know, you're meeting a different group of people, see how they're getting on, bit of chat, bit of banter. You know, I remember saying this maybe when I was 19. Someone was saying, why do you work on the weekends when you can go out drinking? Well, I was like, well, I'm still out on the weekends and seeing all my friends and chatting to my friends, but I'm also paid to be there. I'm not necessarily having a drink, but I'm still, you know, having a good time and seeing people and hanging out. So, you know, and then that kind of took me traveling, and the ease in which I could pick up work with this experience, you know, I just fell further and further in love with the industry.
Yeah, you're not falling into this trap of another Australian bartender, no? You know, certainly.
Too late.
Well, London's full of them as well.
Yeah, I did my time in London. I'm guilty of that too. Even lived in West London, out Acton, Shepherd's Bush way, surrounded by Australians and Kiwis. Very quickly went. I didn't move to London to hang out with Australians and Kiwis, so I moved into King's Cross. But I be dead honest, I preferred Manchester. I think that might be, you know, might offend some, but I lived in Manchester for a time, and I think I preferred the north to London.
Well, Manchester's a buzzing place now.
Yeah, Manchester's always been great bar scene, you know, really vibrant. I loved it there, and you know, I guess, you know, the main reason that kind of shifted me to Dublin was to stay in that kind of area. Like I didn't want to go back to Australia. I kind of liked the family atmosphere that Manchester brought. It's still a city, but, you know, you still see people on a daily basis, you know, that township mentality.
Yeah.
And then I, you know, took a trip to Dublin. I was like, this is even more pronounced. You know, you walk the city in a matter of minutes, you know, 10, 15, 20 minutes. You walk from the north side to the south, and, you know, the bars are obviously there. And I met a few people. I'm just like, oh man, this is amazing. Yeah. So yeah, moved to Dublin 2011, and barring 1 year where Linda and I went to Australia, been here ever since.
Yeah. Well, what is it with Australians and this travel bug they seem to have? Is it? Well, I'm sure the Irish have it as well, but the Australians particularly tend to want to do Europe.
Yeah, I once put it as, so, you know, your summer holidays, which many people are, you know, unfortunate they can't get to experience right now, but, you know, your summer holidays, you go on places like Spain and France and, you know, the Alps and all this magnificent culture in a very small, you know, 6 hours max flight any direction. You go in Greece and Portugal and all this magnificent places you can go. In Australia, our holiday destinations are Thailand, New Zealand, and Bali.
Oh, so I think Bali must be rough.
Well, it's not. It's definitely, certainly not rough. But I tell you, I didn't see snow until I was 25 years old. So just the idea, the concept of it. Everyone says, you know, why did you leave Australia? It's so warm and hot and beautiful. I was like, the variance, the weather, seeing different weather. You know, I wouldn't have seen rain going sideways out the window. I didn't see snow until I was 25. So it was really eye-opening to travel and see. And then, yeah, the more you travel, the more you're like, well, what's this place like? And what's this place like?
Yeah. I see you've been all over the world, really, with your bartending skills. What kind of bartending were you doing? Was it initially run of the mill and then you moved into cocktails, or how did it go?
My first was a pub, like a typical old school public house with rooms upstairs, live music, kind of a jack of all trades. You know, the front bar had, you know, that very local mentality with the the patrons that have been here for the longest period of time. Their paintings were enshrined on the walls. You know, the guys that had, you know, graced certain chairs for a certain amount of years, that was their spot. And, you know, there was that section. Then there was the back bar that opened a little later, and then the gambling section, the pool hall, and the bands upstairs. So yeah, it's a bit of jack of all trades. So it was a great place to learn.
Yeah.
Went to, you know, a couple of different pubs and into a nightclub. Probably kind of wanted to move away from that once you ticked that box. So from then on, it was cocktail bars and whiskey bars. They were the two that kind of shaped my career. There was one kind of cocktail bar that had this phenomenal training program where you proved that you were valuable to the company to a certain extent, and they gave you a pay rise. You know, you proved you're more valuable. You know, I remember the trial was 2 weeks. You weren't guaranteed a job until you did a 2-week trial, paid of course, but still.
Where was that, Rob?
Manchester, Living Ventures and the Alchemists. So good guys there. Shout out to Di and Felix and Mark and a few others. So yeah, really cool and intricate training program. It really kind of gave you the incentive to learn more about the industry.
Yeah. And
then, so that was a cocktail bar, and I wanted to learn more and more and more about cocktails. And the second one that shaped my career was a whiskey bar in Ottawa. And I was still, you know, 24, 25, something like that. And moved to the capital city of Canada and started in this, what I thought was a pub. It was called the Highlander Pub. And the owner, he had 200 single malts behind the bar. It was one of the biggest collections in North America at that time. He said to me, he said, "You know much about whiskey?" And I was like, well, a little bit. You know, typically like to blag my way through a little bit. So he asked me a few questions. It's pretty clear I don't know that much about whiskey. So he said to me, "You know what? I want you to taste whiskey every night of the week and start a tasting journal and develop your palate that way." So every night I try a different whiskey. You know, I was taken aback by his generosity. So I didn't just jump to the Highland Park 40s and the Macallans. And so I worked my way up, you know, started with a few blends and stuff that I knew, you know, I knew where I was getting into. I knew that kind of realm. But yeah, over the course of that time, just developed a huge kind of passion for whiskey. So I kind of knew that I wanted to be involved in either whiskey or cocktails. So luckily, those kind of bars, those two bars, kind of drove my career trajectory.
Yeah,
that word.
Well, and when you came over to Ireland, where did you start off?
The Exchequer. So the Exchequer in Dublin too. Yeah. So I flew over from Manchester for a day, met Peter and Ian, who were the owners at the time. I met them. I did a couple of interviews, the Dillon Hotel over near the canal. Did a couple of others around the city, but the Exchequer kind of really stood out. They were it was September, October-ish. They said, "You know what, do the hard yards at Christmas." And at this time, I don't think I really understood what Christmas in Dublin meant.
Yeah.
They were like, do Christmas. And then in January, you go, the menu's yours, do whatever you want, you know, be as creative as possible. So I was like, cool, yeah, no problem. I'd love that. So yeah, did the hard yards over Christmas. It was a tough few months. But we launched the menu there, which was called the Liquor Ledger. So it was a kind of breakdown, historical versus kind of modern takes, a little bit of, you know, the starts of what I would do in later bars. But yeah, we were kind of lucky that smoked old fashioned still in the Exchequer now made with Teeling whiskey. A couple of the cocktails are still available. I think the key lime pie with meringue foam toasted on top is still there. So yeah, we got a bit of luck. We won up a couple of awards. I built a phenomenal team around me. some pretty big names in the industry now. The Porrick Kennedy, who's managing bars in Sydney, Connor Myers, Tiernan O'Gara, Will Lynch, who you know.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of these guys kind of just joined the team, and we had this phenomenal atmosphere and a great banter. So we were quite lucky with that bar, and yeah, kind of allowed me to move onwards and upwards.
Yeah, how are the bars different to other countries in Ireland?
I can tell that with a story. That first Christmas, I remember, you know, it was mental. 12 pubs. Yeah, it was crazy. And I came in from, say, London background and some cities in Vancouver and Ottawa and blah blah blah. So I remember I was making drinks, and you know, when someone's got 4, 5, 6, 7 drinks in front of them, you know, I know where it is, but you know, the consumer probably doesn't. So someone started grabbing the drinks, and I snapped, which I probably shouldn't have, but you know, under a little bit of pressure and heat, snapped, and she complained. So Peter, the owner of the Exchequer, still today, he pulled me aside. He said, "Look, I just want to, you know, tell you something. Oh no, share something with you." And it stuck with me ever since. He said, "Look out the window. What do you see?" I'm like, "Yukio." And he's like, "Hey, look over the airway. What do you see?" I'm like, 777. He's like, "What's around the corner?" I'm like, "The globe." He's like, "They're all pubs. What's to stop all the people that are in this pub going to those pubs?"
Yeah.
I was like, he's like, "It's not your drinks. I'll tell you. I'm not going to, you know, it's anyone can get a pint anywhere. You know, sure, we do a good pint, we do good food, but it ain't the drinks. It ain't your glowing personality. You need a personality, you need atmosphere, you need music, you need cleanliness." So that kind of Irish hospitality was, you know, ingrained very early, and I got a lot of respect for it. And it's, you know, something that I've always been keenly aware of, that banter, that interaction, that you're providing an experience, not just a drink.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is the service as well that you go to a pub for. You don't just go for the liquid, you know.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah. So I made the mistake of probably working in one of those bars that you do, you know, I think I was a little spoiled in Sydney, where there isn't that bar across the road. You know, there's maybe 1 or 2 in the city centre, but you go a little bit out of the city, the next bar's a mile away. So they kind of maybe can get a little way, you know, not as hospitable as an Irish bartender.
yeah, yeah. So you worked the bar trade then for a number of years, and how did the Teeling come about?
I was always a big fan of Irish whiskey. Yeah, like opened Peruke and Periwig on Dawson Street 2013, and like I was still learning about Irish whiskey even then. I was like, why is, you know, they're not more Irish whiskey focused cocktail bars? You know, there's always going to be Irish whiskey focused bars, but there wasn't that many Irish whiskey focused cocktail bars. There was a lot of bourbon and Scotch at that time. Yeah. So we opened Peruke and Periwig. I was like, I'm going to have, you know, focus on maybe 1 bourbon cocktail, 1 Scotch cocktail, and then 6, 7 Irish whiskey cocktails. You know, Middleton took me down to the academy, continued, you know, learning, met Jack and Stephen Tealing, kind of had a Tealing cocktail on there. Obviously, Kevin Hurley, my predecessor, and I, good friends. He was running the Liquor Rooms, which was a sister venue to Peruke and Periwig, before moving on to being brand ambassador at Tealing. We started the Irish Craft Cocktail Awards together as well. So, yeah, I mean, he asked me to be one of the first bartenders when Tealing opened in 2015, the distillery. Yeah. So I was one of the first bartenders to work the Tealing whiskey distillery, along with Steph Shen, who you know. Yeah. And yeah, always been a big fan of Tealing. You can go back through my Instagram, you know, before I worked for Tealing, always a big fan. One of my memories came up with the first time I met John. You know, when we did a year in Sydney, I was still, you know, making Tealing cocktails, even though it's quite hard to get, or was quite hard to get there. I was still making Tealing drinks and trying to shout out Jack and Stephen and Kev at the time and get a bit of love. So yeah, I was always a big fan of Tealing and what they did. So when the opportunity came up, I think I'd gone home to Australia for a funeral, and Kev called me and said, "Here, look, I'm hanging up the shoes. You know, I've got kids now. The travel's a bit much. Would you like to apply?" I was like, 100%. Wow. So I took a month off, learned everything I could about Tealing, put together a presentation. You know, Jack and Stephen, I think, were in the US at the time. So yeah, I just really kind of did my homework, made sure that, you know, I was well versed, and yeah, big fan now. even bigger fan now, and yeah, I'm proud to represent Teeling and the Irish whiskey category.
Yeah, as a category of Irish whiskey, it's probably unfair to say this, because Irish whiskey is so varied. But could you say what Irish whiskey brings to cocktail scene that Scotch and bourbon and maybe others don't?
Yeah, I think, and small batch is, a great example of this. At the time, that cusp where the boom really started to kick into second gear, the misconception globally for Irish whiskey was that it was washed away in cocktails. I've heard many people say that, and for a long period of time, perhaps it was, with a lot of Irish whiskeys being more similar than they were different for a few years, because that's all people outside of Ireland cared about from the category. Nowadays, and this well, like the future of flavor within the Irish whiskey category, due to the looser classifications around maturation, not just in wood types, but any type of alcohol. We're not restricted in that sense either. And then we've got terroir and all these different grain types and mash bills and yeast strains now as well. So I think the future of flavor is brilliant, and brands like Teeling with small batch came along at that time when cocktail culture was booming, as bartenders were kind of moving away from overly sugared syrups, and they were moving away from store-bought purees and things like that, and they were moving toward natural ingredients and foraging and being a bit more experimentational and creative. Something at 46% ABV, which had that unique point of difference and was interesting, and it stood up in a cocktail, it made people kind of turn around and take notice. So yeah, like a lot of things to play there. I think Jack and Sean from the Dead Rabbits said this, the blends and that high grain content really kind of brings people to the Irish whiskey in a way. We've found this in the distillery. We can talk about this in a little bit, but cocktails, whiskey cocktails, have a brilliant way to bring people to the category where, say, a neat single malt Scotch wouldn't, if that makes sense. You want to bring someone to whiskey, you want people to start enjoying more and more whiskey so the category can explode, but they've never drunk whiskey a day in their life. You give them Octomore, you're probably going to stop them drinking whiskey ever again, ever. So Irish whiskey, and especially blends, have this remarkable ability to kind of bring people in to maybe something that they weren't expecting. There's been times in the past where I've made someone a cocktail and haven't told them it's whiskey because you're at an event or something, and you say, "What can I get for you?" They're like, "Anything but whiskey." So in my head, I'm like, challenge. I need to make you a drink that has whiskey and you don't even know has whiskey, and adapting whiskey sours or things like that is a great way to bring, say, a margarita or a daiquiri fan to Irish whiskey, and then they start to see it for what it is, and this variable, fruit forward, kind of expressive form of whiskey that can slowly evolve their palates into a wider appreciation for the global whiskey category.
I mean, trying to get people to like whiskey, it's a difficult thing because the category is so varied now. You can bring them in on blends and you can end up on peated malts. So we've got to that stage now. It's fantastic. And we're looking forward to loads more new expressions coming out. I mean, I think the big advantage we have over our Scotch counterparts is the ability to have different mash bills, slightly more different anyway, and we don't have to use oak anymore. But saying that, on a daily basis, as a brand ambassador, and probably pre-COVID-19, what was your typical role? What does a brand ambassador do?
Well, so previously to COVID, there was a lot of travel into different markets. So you kind of have a lot of pre-communication with the guys on the ground there, the distributors and the sales teams and the importers and things like that. You get a sense, because every market is that subtly different. You go to certain places. The best way that I can put this is you go to, say, Scandinavia. They love smoked fish, where you can't just copy and paste that around the world. You've got to kind of work within different markets, see what they respond to. You want to create a great first and initial experience of Teeling, of Irish whiskey, because in some cases they were still new to it. Now that changes on a daily basis now. And the second was the education. Hundreds and hundreds of years of provenance and history. I've said this many times. The global whiskey industry is booming. You have Australian whiskey and obviously Taiwanese whiskey, Indian whiskey, and then the big players: bourbon, Japanese, Scotch, Israeli. But very few have the provenance and the history of Irish whiskey. And I think, even as it is, when I was putting together that menu for the Exchequer in 2011, I was still Googling stuff about whiskey. And I know, because there's a friend of mine that still pulls me up to this day on it. I put on that menu that no Irish whiskey was peated at a time when Connemara existed, because I pulled that information from Google, because the wealth of information just wasn't there. The internet had still kind of had a lot to learn. So, we were still making mistakes, and that still exists today. Going to these markets, telling them about Irish whiskey, telling them about the future of Irish whiskey, huge potential, teaching them about Irish whiskey and Irish whiskey cocktails, and hopefully create some converts, grow the category. Like I say, in Ireland, we always have, between Irish whiskey brands, we're a bit bickery, and we joke and nudge, nudge, wink, wink kind of thing. But you go outside of Ireland, and you're still reminded that it's a pretty small subsect of the category. With, I think it's now 8%. It was still minimal to Scotch and blended Scotch, so plenty of work to be done.
Yeah. What are the growth areas, growth markets for Irish whiskey? I suppose Teeling, of course, as well. Where do you see those growth markets?
We started to see them. So obviously your big ones, France, Germany, US, places like that. Russia's a massive one that,
Russia's
I did my first
very big lately. Yeah.
Yeah, Russia's exploding. I did a training in Nigeria today, which was great. Apparently that's booming. They put in a massive order for Irish whiskey. South Africa, it's constantly exploding. I think 80 countries now we're in, and going from strength to strength, which is really, really good. Benelux, I've been a few times at Benelux. Australia's getting there. Yeah, I mean, we're in with Dan Murphy's, a huge off trade kind of chain. The premium off trade or off license, if you will. Great to be with those guys over there. Plenty of work to be done in Australia as well. There's only Martin Lynch is our guy over there. So one guy covering Australasia. So he's from China all the way through Australasia and Australia and New Zealand. So a lot of ground to cover for one guy. So he's doing a brilliant job. But
a lot of mileage, I'm sure.
A lot of mileage.
Oh, apart from that, one of the things that you're involved in is the Phoenix Forum as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been an important resource, I think, for bartenders, and particularly over this COVID period. So there's been a lot of podcasts and training and those sort of elements, and I think some involvement with the WSET as well through that. Can you tell me about how you got involved in that and what it offers?
Yes, of course. So the Phoenix Forum was established again before my time. It was established by Kevin Hurley and Gabriel Cocker and Tealing beforehand, and it was, to boil it down to a single sentence, TED Talks for bartenders, where we brought in international guests to the distillery and they talked about what they were passionate about. So it didn't necessarily always have to be about whiskey. So in the past, we've done one on mental health and well-being and the importance of sleep for a bartender. Jack McGarry and Sean Muldoon did one on building a brand in a bar. We've had all these kind of different bartenders from the industry. Barney Toy, who's now based in Auckland, and a few others. So the platform was there. I'd taken over and I'd done a couple. Tim Judge, Mo from Spain, from Barcelona. So we'd done a few of them. And when lockdown happened, we had this kind of group, this Facebook group of about 500 bartenders in there from not just Ireland. Obviously big percentage of that is Irish bartenders, but we had a couple in Benelux and Eastern Europe as well that had been to Dublin and just coincided with one of our Phoenix forums. And I was kind of floating around on the Dublin Bartender Exchange and a few kind of Facebook accounts from Dublin bartenders going, what are we supposed to do? And a few of them were reaching out going, how do we continue our education during this time? You know, brands were a little silent because they didn't know what to do. Like no one knew what to do. There was no playbook.
Yeah.
So I kind of just jumped on and just filmed myself on my phone in landscape, which a friend of mine has now told me not to do, learn the hard way, but film myself on landscape, giving my Teeling presentation, and said, if anyone's keen to do more of these, let me know. And it kind of just blew up. A lot of positivity. You know, being the internet, I was kind of expecting not so much positivity. So what we did, we just invited a bunch of brands and bartenders. So yeah, again, weren't necessarily focused on Teeling whiskey or even whiskey category. We had, you know, a sommelier who's a friend of ours from Benelux. She came on, talked about wine and talked about the different styles of wine. We have Fiona O'Connor do a fantastic presentation on the history that we don't really get to see, and did it in such a way that's truly remarkable with his breakfast.
Yeah, enigmatic presentations. Yeah, characters.
We did Aperol. So Alan Glynn came on, talked about Aperol and Italian bitters, and we just tried to get different and unique kind of looks on the hospitality industry as a wider whole. And yeah, really kind of got a lot of attraction. So reached out to the WSET, and we put together a level 1 spirits course. Yeah. Through the Irish Whiskey and Spirits Institute.
Was that Nick, was it?
Yeah, Nick, and myself and Kevin Hurley sponsored the places through the Irish Craft Cocktail Award. So we, you know, put some money towards that, and we had about 40 places for Irish bartenders to obtain that qualification in spirits. So they're finishing their exams, I think, the week after next. Which is cool. Yeah, it was a good initiative to pull together.
Yeah, I think it's a great resource for the bartenders, and not only from the training point of view, just the moral support, because they are suffering. I mean, obviously you're one of the more fortunate ones that you haven't been furloughed or anything like that. There are plenty that are unfortunately in a difficult situation. So I think they obviously appreciate the efforts you put in. So. And I love going on and seeing some of the posts as well. Just sometimes it's nice to see a non-whiskey related post as well, and you know, just to understand the industry at a more general level. So
yeah, we're doing one on the 1st of September, which could be a gamble, but to coincide with our latest rum finish collaboration, the Stiggins cask from Plantation Rum, their pineapple rum. We've sent 5 different rum-influenced Irish whiskies, Irish Tealings, to Ian Burrell, the global rum ambassador, to chat through, you know, why we've experimented with these different rums, where we got to the point, and you know, how do we merge those 2 flavor profiles, and then get his impression of them. So fingers crossed that he likes them as a rum aficionado. Fingers crossed he likes some rum-influenced Teeling whiskey.
Of course. You know, the rum finished original small batch from Teeling was a bit of a revelation when it came out, for 2 reasons, I suppose. One, the rum finished. Secondly, the 46% was a bit of a breakthrough as well. And that is the main Teeling product, if you like, the main entry point into. But I mean, there's been an awful lot of development. And you know, we were talking earlier, the amount of different cask variations that are brought out from Teeling. What's coming up in the future? Can you give us an insight as to what releases we can expect over the next while?
I might get in trouble, but sure, I'm going to ask for forgiveness, not permission. Is that the saying?
Well, I am trying to. I was kindly sent a sample of the award-winning 28-year-old. So congratulations,
nice.
Congratulations for that. That's a big deal. Voted best Irish whiskey at the IWSC, and of course they've done well with the single malts. The 24-year-olds has won awards as well. So on the award front, Teeling has done very, very well.
Yeah, I think that's really kind of backs up, you know, everything we say. You know, big focus on flavor. You know, we have gone left of field. There's, you know, I always kind of, well, I don't always say this, but say, you know, there are certain Teeling products that you can taste side by side blindly. You'd never guess they're from the same distillery. So we're not trying to fit under one kind of core flavor umbrella. It's more about the experimentation and innovation of flavor. Yeah. But the 28 brings a good point. So yeah, going back to your question, COVID kind of put a damper on. We had a whole year of planned releases, and obviously they all kind of got shelved as we didn't know and didn't know what to do. So there's a few whiskies in the pipeline there that are just itching to see the light of day. But probably the one that has a lot of people interested has been influenced by the awards that we've won for both the 24 and the 28, and that's Black Pits. It's our core peated single malt, which is really exciting. It's going to be a core product. It's the second core release that will be from Dublin stock. Really, really exciting. And the way that it's been influenced by those two award-winning vintage reserves is that it's going to be influenced by Sauterne and bourbon casks. So it is going to be that mixture, that smoky kind of Irish whiskey with fruit-forward characteristics. I get a lot of apricot from Sauterne. So that kind of marriage just really kind of sings for me.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to try it. We went and visited the distillery with the Aviator Society, and I got a pre-production version of the Black Pits. I have to say, it's a fantastic entry into the peated world without being overbearing, and the fruitiness in that really makes it a very easy entry into peated whiskey.
Yeah, I should certainly stress that it probably won't be out until October at this stage, but it's certainly one of the exciting ones. So, yeah, it's very, very interesting. Like I said, we've got the plantation pineapple coming out at the end of this month, so you want to stagger them as much as possible in this new COVID world, but not long now.
Okay. And obviously the 37 came out as well at a price point that is probably beyond most people. But have you got to try that yet yourself, or?
No, I'm not that lucky either, I'm afraid. Sometimes you get lucky. One of the guys, James, who's our distillery brand ambassador, was in the right place at the right time, ran into Alex. Probably shouldn't be dobbing him like this, but he got to try a wee little taste and said it's fantastic. I haven't got to try it yet, but probably dictates that I should probably go into the distillery more and just start hanging around and
just following Alex around the place.
Yeah, just bother Alex. Just follow him around. What you got today?
Yeah. But I mean,
yeah, it's exciting. We did. There's Renaissance. We launched this time last year for Whiskey Live, or I guess not this time, but Renaissance 1 launched Whiskey Live last year, hugely successful. So in the pipeline was Renaissance 2. So that's coming up in the few months too, which is exciting. So yeah, plenty to keep things interesting and all quite different as well. So
a lot will be coming. A lot of the new releases, will they be based around what's coming out of the Dublin distillery itself?
That's important to us, obviously. The integration of Dublin distiller for Alex, for our 5th birthday, Alex and I did a tasting of 5 Dublin whiskies, and we got a lot of positive responses to what is currently going to be a core component of our Dublin distilled single malt, which is crystal malt. So yeah, a lot of people kind of shouting about that one. So yeah, I mean, really want to start introducing Dublin whiskies as they're all starting to mature now and get a little bit more impactful. We're learning how each of those distillates are impacted by the different casks that we've put them in. It's not just the distillate. It was, that proprietary yeast blend that we use with white wine yeast and distillers yeast. So there's certain esters in there that we need to take into consideration. They're all triple distills. So learning what casks of the years of experience, the years of experimentation we've done with casks, learning what cask best exemplifies those kind of Dublin whiskies has been part of the last 5 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Alex doesn't make your job any easier with the number of different releases and the variation of them all. I mean, some of them are just... from Calvados to Rome to port finishes to everything else in between and all the different yeasts. Tell me, is the Black Pits going to be a Dublin? Is it a Dublin release? The Black Pits.
Yeah,
Dublin spirit. Yeah.
Yes, so that's the second core release. That's a Dublin whiskey. So the single pot still is obviously number 1, and that's evolved into what we know today. So it's gone through the celebratory release. It's gone into its second bottle run. So that's
Right.
exciting. It's blowing up in the States. You know, a lot of positive response over there in the US. But yeah, the second major core release from Teeling, you know, obviously disregarding single casks and things like that, from the Dublin distillate is going to be Black Pits. So that's going global.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge number of single cask releases as well. I know you brought one out for. There was one brought out for the COVID firefighter and the emergency services.
Mm-hmm.
So that sold out very, very quickly, actually.
Yeah, again, you know, Jack was like, I want to do something impactful. I don't want to just do, you know, a PR piece. He was trying to think of, you know, something that could to give back to these guys, because, you know, these guys have been working solidly for months on end.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, you know, you put these ideas on paper and you cross your fingers, and yeah, the overwhelming kind of support and positivity from it was just great. You know, really responded, and the people that opened them seemed to really enjoy the whiskey, which was influenced by Irish oak. So yeah, really happy with how that came about.
We have a question in here from Adrian. Which is your favorite Teeling whiskey?
Someone's asked me this before, and it's hard to answer. My favorite of the core range is probably single grain. I grew up on bourbon. My favorite whiskey, my guilty pleasure, was Blanton's for a long period of time. Yeah. So I, you know, for those that know the Teeling single grain well, being a predominantly corn-based distillate influenced by red wine, you could see, you know, why I was drawn that way. So more often than not, you see me with a bottle of beer and a glass of single grain. But Tim from Whiskey Wednesdays asked me what my desert island whiskey was. And I think I have to say the 24.
Yeah.
Just for the reason that, you know, there are times I want a peaty Scotch. There are times that I'll have Auchentoshan and Blood Oak. There'll be times I want bourbon, but I could drink the 24 any day of the week, any time of the week. But yeah, not budget. Yeah, not the budget.
Yeah, I mean, I love the single grain. Actually, I think it's one, you know, and that single grain category is certainly, you know, it's starting to take off a little bit. It's one of the newer trends that single grains are coming out. And a great introduction into Irish whiskey, I think, as well.
I think a lot of American whiskey fans really respond to the single grain for obvious reasons. You know, being that it has a lot of structural similarity to American whiskey. So, you know, it does come at their palates, I guess, from a different angle, where they, you know, they're expecting something like Jameson, Tullamore Dew, and then this comes along and they're like, hang on a second, that's not at all what I was expecting. I really love this. So yeah, it kind of, you know, gets you in the door, if you know what I mean. Like, they're just like, okay, no, stop everything. Tell me as much as you can about Irish whiskey now. And you're like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, in cocktails, what is it specifically you're looking for from an Irish whiskey? Or is it totally dependent on the cocktail you're doing?
Definitely dependent on the cocktail that we're doing. So in the distillery, which is a great example, you know, a lot of the stuff that we're doing right now is a bit of a back to the basics, trying to show people how to recreate our distillery cocktails at home, or Teeling cocktails at home. So from that perspective, you look at the distillery, you look at the clientele that come in the distillery. A lot of people come in, they're not necessarily whiskey fans. They're in Dublin or Ireland for a short period of time, and, you know, they want an experience more than a real kind of deep dive on whiskey. Obviously, they're getting that, but you want to try and go. They want to learn how to make whiskey. They want to go to the Guinness Storehouse, and they want to have an Irish coffee, and probably go to Temple Bar. That's their big box checklist. Yeah. So for the short period of time we have them at the distillery, we want to convert them to Irish whiskey. We want them to walk away going, I need to know more about Irish whiskey. I want Irish whiskey in my off license in Ohio. Mm-hmm. So we break our cocktail menu down into styles of cocktails, so we can best give them something that they're really looking forward to, if that makes sense. So great example of this is, if someone drinks a gin and tonic all the time, you know, that's their drink of choice. Yeah. They're probably not going to respond to an old fashioned or a Manhattan or something like that. You're going to turn them off whiskey and Irish whiskey. So you just need that one quantifier. What kind of cocktail do you like? Is it a whiskey sour, margarita, daiquiri, sidecar, those kind of short, sharp sweets? cool, let's make you the best whiskey sour or some kind of sour. You know, do you like an Aperol spritz? Let's bring you in that direction. If they like a gin and tonic, or they like jammy lime and ginger, let's make them, you know, a fantastic long drink. So I think we're going to make a long drink here today. Just something that, you know, they're not necessarily getting a big whack of whiskey, but they've got this lovely long experience they can sit on for a while, really enjoy the balance of flavors. Obviously, your whiskey fans really respond to an old-fashioned, a Manhattan, those spirit-forward cocktails, Boulevardier and such, where 90% of your cocktail is spirits. And then finally, what we really do well, especially with small batch being so versatile, is we start to do, you know, tiki drinks and sweeter styles of cocktails where your secondary ingredients take a little bit more of a precedence. Perfect example of this, Irish coffee. You know, the first flavor you get in Irish coffee is obviously coffee, followed by whiskey. Same with kind of tiki drinks. A lot of these vibrant fruit flavors work really well with Teeling small batch. So if we can narrow down what kind of cocktail they like, we can gear a Teeling small batch cocktail for them, and we've found a lot of response to that. So we kind of try and roll that out.
What kind of breakdown do you have between people drinking whiskey straight as opposed to in cocktails? Is it 50-50, or is it more people drinking it?
Well, that's the thing. Like, the initial tour offering for Teeling is a small batch cocktail and small batch, and you know, far away bestseller. You know, hundreds of thousands of people come through the distillery and have the basic offering. They wanted a Teeling cocktail. So yeah, a lot of people come to Irish whiskey through cocktails.
And what do you find? They progress then onto drinking it neat?
Yeah, I think so. It's a slow process. Linda's father, you know, didn't drink whiskey when I met him, and I got him on through, you know, whiskey highball, like a Hemingway daiquiri with Teeling small batch, into a long drink, into a old fashioned, and now, you know, we're enjoying a Brabazon 3 together. So yeah, it's a slow moving train, but if you do it in the right way, you can definitely convert people to Irish whiskey for sure.
Okay, I have another question in here from Eric from the Netherlands, I think he is. Does Teeling produce some whiskey especially to put in cocktails? That's basically the crux of it. Yeah,
I mean, there's certainly kind of stuff that we've done that work really well for cocktails. I mean, it's not the only thing. When Alex is creating whiskeys and working with different cast finishes and things like that, you know, he's never, I don't think anyway, going, this would work really well in cocktails. I think first and foremost, the whiskey distiller, he's just trying to make an absolutely amazing whiskey. And then as a byproduct of that, going, oh, Rob, and he'll sometimes bring me stuff and go, look, this is what I've been working on. What do you think? And sometimes, you know, he even sends me cocktail recipes, you know, with some of the stuff that he made, like, oh, I really like this, and I think it would work in here. What do you think? So yeah, like, yes and no. I don't think he ever makes a whiskey with the intention to be used in cocktails, but I think, you know,
that's where you come in, is it, with the cocktail side?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Eric. I forgot you're in Belgium, not in the Netherlands. That's the right part of Europe. I got you. So, sorry, Eric. Eric's been a great supporter of the magazine and the show, so I have him on. But look, we're going to try something that we haven't tried on a previous show, and I don't know how this is going to work. I see you're in I was jealous of your very organized backdrop there. The filing system has to be admired, but you told me it wasn't yours, so you could have bluffed it. And
yeah, I could have bluffed it, but they're all empty. No, they're not empty, but it's not my room. I'm borrowing Linda's mother's office for the time being. So,
while I'm sipping on this 28-year-old, which is rough, maybe you could try and demonstrate creating a cocktail for us. And there are some of us, well, certainly me, that doesn't understand the concepts of, in any detail, of cocktail making in terms of bitters and so forth. So you might want to explain some of that as you go along and just fill us in.
Yeah, for sure. So we're just going to make a highball, like I said earlier. Very simple kind of twist on a whiskey highball, as in whiskey soda. But we want to, you know, elevate it a little bit, try and utilize the ingredients that you have lying around the house, and just create something new, and try and give you the tools in which you can adapt the cocktail that works for you, if that makes sense. So rather than just kind of giving you the strict guidelines of this much, this much, this much, which obviously anyone can do. We're slowly through the cocktails from home and our Teeling infographics on the website now too, which is great.
Yeah, I also did I did the virtual tour there as well of the distillery. Actually, I thought it was brilliant as well. So.
Yeah, it's great fun. Yeah, I did one for some American guests, and they're really excited. You know, never been to Dublin before, and they still got to see the distillery. So it's great stuff.
Amazing.
So yeah, what we're going to do, I'm going to make a version of this. So this is a canned cocktail that a Danish producer put together for us. Again, just that balance of Teeling whiskey soda with that kind of hint of something that brings out, as you said earlier, you know, what are you looking for when you use Teeling small batch? You want to highlight some of the more nuanced, subtle notes. So you want to use that kind of character and bring out a little bit of extra. So those dried fruit characteristics of the Central American rum finish really work well with pineapple for obvious reasons. So we've got a minimal amount of the pineapple cordial. So the way that I did that, everyone has one of these in the cupboard.
Pineapple cordial, maybe.
Yeah. So essentially open that one up, poured the juice out, and then took 2 parts white sugar and 1 part pineapple juice and just stirred and stirred and stirred and stirred till all the sugar was dissolved. And I created cordial. Fortified it a little bit, put some citrus in, but simply, your simple syrup or cordial, equal parts sugar and your flavor and your water for sugar syrup. Or I prefer 2 to 1 because I can be a little bit more forgiving. So basically, quick rule of thumb, always under pour. So start with 10 mils of your sugar syrup. If it's not sweet enough for your liking, add more. Problem with adding too much straight away is you can't then take it out.
Yeah. Okay.
So always start adding sporadically. So
like a good haircut.
Start with my cheaper ingredients. So this is my lovely dark pineapple cordial. And then I'm going to grab my Teeling small batch. So I'm just using a OXO gravy measure. I really like these because the inside, it breaks down my measures really nicely. So, I mean, again, I'm not using fancy cocktail equipment, just anything that I have lying around the house. Another one, you see a lot of cocktail measurements say 1 part. A lot of that isn't trying to like overcomplicate or anything. It's normally someone making a cocktail menu that works both in European measurements, which is milliliters, and the American kind of empirical ounces and things like that. Yes. So when they looking at 1 part, half a part, that's generally based around 30 mils, which is your 1 ounce. So yeah, don't get too scared off by stuff like that. All right, so we've got Teeling small batch, nice, lovely double measure Teeling small batch, and about 15-20 mils of the pineapple cordial.
Okay.
Next up, I've just got soda water. I'm actually mixing this pre-ice.
What's the thinking behind that?
So if you put ice in and then pour the soda on top, it's actually going to layer because of the densities of the liquids.
All right.
So the whiskey and the cordial will sit down the bottom of the glass. The ice will kind of break it up, and then your soda will be the top edge. I'm sure you've seen with that color gradient. Yes, so if you put your fancy metal reusable straw down the bottom and drink, you're just getting a big whack of whiskey and pineapple cordial. You're not getting the whole mixed experience. Okay. So for a little acidity, a little bit of lime juice. So I'm just squeezing in a little bit of lime here. And then I've cut a little bit for my garnish. So just a simple peel of lime. And then ice. Let me grab my ice here. 1 hard part.
Hasn't all melted yet.
There we go. Made a mess. There we go. So super simple. That little bit of sweet, not too much. You're kind of really letting the Teeling small batch do the driving, giving a little bit of hint to bring out a little bit more of those kind of dried fruit characteristics. The soda gives it a lovely long length without overpowering it in any way. And that acidity just breaks up that sweetness a little bit, just cuts through that sweetness a little bit.
Yeah, I wish we had nicer weather to enjoy cool drinks like that.
Yeah, we were really lucky with this when this came out. So this is an example of that. I think the guys in Micropolis Cocktails over there in Denmark, they did a fermented pineapple cordial. So they kind of stepped it up even more. and put a little bit in. But there's little things that you guys can do at home. So with those syrups and purees, you can obviously use bitters and things like that, which we'll touch on. But yeah, there's also kind of different sugars that you can use, different syrups. So not just your kind of tin pineapples. You grab your juices and bring them up with a little bit of syrup. You can do something called shrubs, which were big in bars a few years back, where historically they'd use vinegars to keep fruits from going bad. So it'd be kind of this combination of sugar, fruit or fruit juice, and vinegar, and it gives that lovely kind of sharp kind of bite to it. So I put a little bit of apple cider vinegar in my syrup. I didn't want to say it at the start, but just a little bit of kind of sharpness.
So all those ingredients are ingredients that many people would have at home anyway. They don't have to run off and get fancy ingredients from. Exactly.
And they're not gonna make a huge impact to what you're doing. It just kind of, once you've made the cocktail 1 or 2 times and you want to get more adventurous, we're not saying go out and buy a full back bar of equipment. You can make a really decent cocktail with the stuff you have at home. Once you've done that a couple of times, you can continue to evolve it. I think that's what's happening in lockdown with, at the start, people doing a lot of cooking, and then they evolved and like, all right, I'm going to make sourdough. I'm going to make dumplings. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. So I think, that's what we're trying to do, is give them a roadmap of getting, better at making their cocktails at home.
I've made some attempts. Stephanie Shen sent me the mixer and the bartender and cocktail equipment. And I don't know. I'm going to start off, I think, restart again with that nice, simple introduction, which hopefully I can't get too far wrong. But
no, I think you nail it. Take a look at some of our cocktail infographics and Tealing at home, or hashtag Tealing at home. You'll definitely find one there that you can replicate easy enough. Super easy. But then, once you start to get exciting, you mentioned bitters, like you can really kind of up your game a little bit and grab something like this, which is hopped grapefruit. So you add that little bit of grapefruit to this cocktail here. You're really only kind of adding a couple of drops. That's all you're doing there.
They're super concentrated,
Yeah, so tinctures are the component of bitters. So there's a little bit of a link to whiskey and tinctures, in that tinctures are a neutral grain alcohol that's influenced by one spice or one flavor. So you have cardamom. So think neutral grain alcohol with some cardamom seeds, you get this high proof spirit that tastes solely of cardamom. That's a tincture. And then the bitters, so probably the most famous one, this one, is a balance or a blend or a combination of these different tinctures. So you've got all these different flavors. So 1-2 drops of these into an old fashioned, into your Manhattan, your cocktails like that, really brings out some of those spice characteristics, depending on the bitters you're using.
What's the one they typically put into a whiskey sour? Is it a rhubarb, or what do they?
That's the Angostura. So this is a branded bitters.
Okay.
So probably one of the more famous the bitters out there. This one then Peychaud's behind that, but there's a vast range. You've got Fee Brothers out there doing mad stuff. This is a barrel aged bitters. So essentially taking this kind of concept and then barrel aging it in a whiskey barrel. So you get a little bit more of those wood tannins and vanillins. You got the Dead Rabbit guys that put together this was kind of inspired by the original recipe for this bad boy. So there's a lot out there. You've got ones that are heavily geared towards certain flavors, like you said, rhubarb. You go into the Celtic whiskey store, you can pick up citrus bitters, rhubarb bitters, orange, all these chocolate, all these different flavors, where that is the kind of key kind of flavor characteristic. So you can be a bit adventurous with it. And again, add 1 drop at a time. You really like it, you can kind of step it up. And the best thing about them is they take a long time to go bad. I think everyone's probably got one of these lying around the house. If not, pick one up and just sit back there. You'll find it again in 20 years.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to take us through one more before we go, or have I caught you on the hop?
No. What I might do instead is showcase this bad boy. So rather than making an old fashioned,
okay,
we've got this. So this is the Newmarket fashion. So again, rather than yes, you can make cocktails at home, but sometimes we want to make it a little bit easier for you. So yes, we have the highball there, but what if you like an old fashioned, a Manhattan, those kind of spirit forward cocktails? we've got you sorted. So at the Teeling Distillery website, you can get these delivered to your door. So we've made the Newmarket fashioned. So
are they new to the market?
Yes and no. We did them in the past as kind of gift bags. The bottling is new. So we picked up these bottles to match the small batch. We relabeled, did a little bit more work on them. But it's the Newmarket fashion. So our riff on an old fashioned, specifically geared towards Teeling small batch. Okay. So again, instead of using kind of a beet sugar syrup, we went with honey from the roof of the distillery. Instead of using, just bitters, we sourced a pimento dram, which is kind of an all-spice liqueur.
Yeah.
We use a little bit of spiced rum again to make that hop, skip, and a jump between the bitters flavors and the small batch rum influences. So that kind of intersected there of a spiced rum, allow those two separate worlds to kind of join in the middle, all in small measures, and then obviously a nice healthy measure of Teeling small batch, so you can pick that up and just pour it over ice. Yeah. Ready to go.
I mean, I see pre-made cocktails now are starting to become a bigger thing for sure.
Yeah, we're working with a few people, so hopefully we've got one in the pipeline working with a local Dublin bar. So I won't mention who just in case it falls through, but hopefully, fingers crossed, we can work with these guys. They're going to put together a Teeling whiskey cocktail that we can sell in the distillery. So if you swing by the distillery for a tour, I should definitely mention, guys, if you want to come in and see the distillery right now, give me a shout out. If you want to do a private tasting or a virtual tasting, give me a shout out, Robert at Teeling Whiskey, and we'll put something together for you. But hopefully we can work with this local Dublin bar, and then we'll have their Teeling cocktail for sale in the distillery, rather than just make it, about us. It's seeing how these bartenders who are kind of a little struck creatively at the moment, like I think they've got a lot of creativity to give out, and without their bars there, they're kind of a bit stunted. So give them that platform, give them a bit of Teeling, put together a cocktail. Another one we're working on is these guys. So this is
that looks very unusual. So what is that?
So this is an Italian company called Neo that are working with us. And basically the way that this one works is it's a vacuum sealed plastic bag in there. So you basically just rip this. I'm going to obviously make a bowl of this right now. But there, you rip that corner there, and then you can see the perforation here. Again, I'm probably going to make a bollocks of it, but I would probably just use scissors, which I'm going to do rather than spill it all over my laptop.
Hi, Kevin.
And then you pour into, so I'll pour it into my mixer here. This is actually a
great packaging, isn't it?
Yeah, really, really slick.
Dude,
so you can see there, it's only about halfway. So they've given me 2 cocktails worth. So this is actually a whiskey sour. So what they've done, rather than putting in fresh juices, bartenders are being a little bit more adventurous and grabbing citric acid, tartaric acid, malic acid, these acids, and creating almost like a fake lemon juice to kind of substitute in for fresh lemon, because obviously fresh lemon, fresh lime has a shelf life, and you don't want to be shipping packages like this around and people get it.
So this doesn't have the egg foam on top.
It doesn't have the egg white. But yeah, there's still a few people that are turned off by the idea there.
Yeah, great packaging. I have to say, I like that. Neo, and are they available here?
Not as yet. We're still kind of working with them, so hopefully, fingers crossed. They've got a big distribution chain in Italy, obviously, and I think they're quite big in the UK. But yeah, we're still working on something like that. So yeah, maybe hopefully in the future. But for Dublin specifically, you can still get the Newmarket fashioned, the Teeling whiskey highball, and then hopefully we'll have something from a local Dublin bar at the distillery soon.
Yeah, it's funny. Like in the lockdown period, there has been a lot of innovation going on. The market definitely hasn't stopped. What are you most looking forward to about opening up again?
Visiting friends, I think. I did a bit of a jaunt around the city there the other day. Kind of took my phone and filmed a bunch of bars. It's like, how are you getting on? How have you adapted? I haven't seen a lot of friends in a long period of time. So yeah, it'd be good to catch up with people, give them a hug, give them a high five.
Yeah.
I think that would be nice. Have a pint. Yeah, you miss big events. I've had a birthday in lockdown. People are getting married. People are having children. There's friends of mine that are having kids.
It's mad, isn't it?
It's gonna be super weird to catch up with someone that I haven't seen in 6 months, and they're gonna have a kid in tow.
There will be a lot of COVID children as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be. Yeah, I'm sure there will be.
Tell me, what are your plans for the future then? Do you see yourself staying in Ireland or?
Yeah. That's
home now.
That's definitely an easy one to answer. This was home when we first got back. We went through the hassles and the bureaucracy of getting the visa. It was tough. Like, we went to Australia. Linda hated it. I didn't like it because if Linda's not happy, I'm not happy. So yes, we didn't like it. For the first 6 months, it was like, when are my parents coming to visit? When are my parents coming to visit? Once they visited, it was like, okay, now when are we going home? When are we going home? Yeah. When we got back, we jumped through all the hoops, made sure we got the visa. Yeah, this is home now. We're hopefully buy a house if the housing market ever rectifies. Yeah. But yeah, Ireland's home. In lockdown, I've been doing a bit of personal improvement, trying to do a bit of courses, trying to squeeze in my distiller's course, learn more about whiskey and whiskey making, and a bit of Photoshop and some creative stuff. But yeah, Ireland definitely. Don't see myself getting out of the whiskey trade unless I'm pushed.
Hopefully not. No, I mean, in fairness, I mean, you certainly picked the right ticket in terms of both whiskey and being with Teeling. So I'm sure we're going to see a lot of. You were mentioning before, there's probably 8 new releases that are being shelved.
Well, it's not so shelved, but just put on the back burner because like, it wasn't just business as usual in April when we're just learning what's going on. So yeah, there was a couple of things that we're like, okay, let's get ready. Can't wait to launch this bad boy, and then second wave of lockdown happens, or we're restricted to a radius, or even like dry goods. We had problems getting the new tins for black pits. There was a slowdown coming from international markets. So yeah, I mean, there was a lot of problems that no one could foresee. So yeah, I mean, it's nice to be able to slowly move towards again some of these things that were fully formed packaging, boxed up and ready to be shipped out, that we kind of just sat on and wait for the right time. And it's nice to now then start moving again. So yeah, some exciting whiskies coming out in the next few months.
Well, looking forward to them. I'm looking forward to going back to the distillery. I was in the distillery actually just when it reopened. So I'm hoping that people are going and visiting. But obviously, we're a little bit concerned about the increasing number of cases again. So hopefully we won't go into a lockdown situation again. But
yeah, certainly not. It was nice to get open again. There's good days and bad, obviously. Some days 100 people in there, all socially distant, of course. And then the next day you've kind of got 3. Yeah. So you got swings and roundabouts, but it was nice to kind of start moving again.
The distillery is still operational, though. I mean, it's still producing whiskey, and
even during the lockdown, Alex and his team, they structured it in a way that they could work independent of one another. So there's different offices. Obviously the rest of the VC, where the tours and the cafe was closed. So with that huge space, Alex and his team, the 6 guys back there, they worked it out. So 3 on, 3 off, and then they were spread out over the whole building. So they didn't have to work side by side. So yeah, that we never kind of shut down there. Did a little bit with the sanitizer.
Yes.
Found our own troubles with that and learning the ins and outs of making sanitizer, but got through that period, and yeah, here we are.
Yeah. Well, look, Rob, you've been a great ambassador for Teeling. But I mean, I really admire the work you've done in the Phoenix Forum as well for the other bartenders that are feeling the pinch. And I hope you continue that. And look forward to meeting you in person again soon and trying some of the new stuff. Personally, I'm very excited about the Black Pits coming out because I have tried it and it is fantastic. But I know there's some other great stuff coming out, and look forward to that. If people want to get in touch with you, is it through the forum or through just social media? What's the best way to?
Yeah, I mean, you can reach out to me on email, Robert at Teeling Whiskey. My social media is nameless, NAEMLESS. Whole story there.
We're there.
Yeah, it's not about me; it's about the whiskey. And the Phoenix Forum, yeah, join the Phoenix Forum. Check out some of the really cool things that we've got going on. You know, Ian Burrell is going to join us on September 1st. So if you're part of the Phoenix Forum, you can join in and ask all the questions you want. So I might even, if we get a bit of traction, I'm going to give away a bottle of the Plantation Pineapple Collaboration for someone that comes up with a cool cocktail idea. So, you know, don't need you to make up a cocktail, like a video or anything like that. Just conceptually write down, you know, how you would use this whiskey in a cocktail, and we'll give the winner a bottle. And I might even have a couple of samples to hand out to people if next time I'm in Dublin.
Look, I mean, I'm not a cocktail expert by any means, but I mean, I enjoy the whiskeys neat. Like I suppose most whiskey people will be drinking them neat. But I'm looking forward. There's on the 17th of September. There's the Wonder of Wood presentation that's going on as well. So I've got that linked on our website under events. So and of course you can go to the Tealing Whiskey site.
Yeah, that one should be good. So myself will be hosting Alex Chasko and Ian Wood. So Ian Wood's our head of maturation, and everyone knows who Alex Chasko is.
Yeah.
And what we're going to be doing, Alex came up with this brilliant idea. He's got these lovely whiskeys and he wants to share them. You know, normally, you know, bring them around to my desk, and you know, I'm here in Bray, so he's bringing it to you guys. So yeah, buy tickets. We're going to ship you out samples of some of the more interesting alternative wood influenced whiskeys that we have. You know, pick a winner, and that will become our new distillery exclusive. So it's an exciting concept. Really? You get to try these different whiskeys. Yeah. So it'll be really cool. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, all driven by, you know, Alex. Get on there.
17th of September happens to be my birthday.
There you go. There you go.
I will be treating myself to that and hopefully learn some new stuff. I mean, Alex is incredible to learn stuff. He's so many years experience. So look, Rob, I know it's difficult times. I really appreciate you taking the time and the efforts you've done for the industry, not just for Tealing, I mean, in general, for the bartender as well. So I wish you every success going forward. And I'm sure Tealing will be a great ticket for you going forward.
Thanks very much for having me, Sergio. And I look forward to the next thing we go do together. I will make sure to get you some black pits soon.
I actually have some still here that I nose occasionally, you know, but no, I mean, that's for me one of the most exciting and anticipated releases of the year. So I'm really looking forward to that. And look, we'll touch base again soon. Hopefully it'll be in person.
Yeah.
And stay safe and well, and we'll talk to you soon.
Launch up. See you guys. Thanks for
launch, Rob. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us. That's episode 12. Pretty much finished. If you have enjoyed it, we'd really encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and maybe have a look at our new website. So our new website was launched last week. I think it's a very useful resource. If you have any suggestions on how we can improve it, we'd be delighted to hear your feedback. And everybody stay safe and well. And we'll catch you next week. We'll be announcing in the next couple of days who our guest will be. I have a good inkling, just waiting for final confirmation. And episode 13 next week. Thanks very much, everybody, for coming and visiting. And take care. Bye-bye.